G'day guys, welcome to part 3 in this series of videos. In this series of videos I go about building a Seagull Models Boomerang trainer. Now in part 3 we go on to a bit more of the construction of the aircraft. So going to be starting epoxying the main wing together and a few other things. So what we're going to do is I'll quickly go over to the table behind me, do a quick recap, if I can get the words out, of what was done in the previous video, and then we'll carry on with the build. Alright guys, so here we have the progress so far. I know it doesn't look like much. Now before I carry on, I'll have to apologize ahead of time. Thor is outside causing thunder, so we're in the middle of, there's a bit of a thunderstorm coming over, and so you might see flashes of lightning. Might even get spooked a couple of times because the thunder does get loud in this shed. So anyway, in the previous video we started off with the gluing of the hinges for all the control surfaces. So we got the ailerons. I still have the pins in those at the moment, just letting them dry. We have the hinges for the rudder and the elevator. So that all the hinges are done. So the next step is to glue the main wing together with epoxy. So what I'm going to do is explain it in a moment, but first I'll get everything prepped and ready, and then we'll carry on from there. Alrighty guys, so we've got our two wing halves here. Now what we also need to have is our wing tube or wing spar, however you want to put it. We need that, as that helps join the wings together and holds them together. So one of the first things we need to do is when you go to put the wing tube in, and I'm sorry that it's starting to rain, so I'll make this quick. Make sure that there's no debris in the holes. Then do a test fit of the tube, make sure it goes in nicely. Then once you are ready, get your epoxy. I'm trying to talk loud over the rain. Get your epoxy, mix it. Don't be stingy with the epoxy. You want to make sure you've got plenty to do both sides of the wing halves, and then join your wings together. So I'm going to do that off camera, and I'll be back. Alrighty guys, it has been quite a considerable amount of time. It's been probably about an hour or so since I've done this. As I was just explaining, you could hear the rain coming. It's still sprinkling a little bit, but an absolutely freak storm rolled through. And I mean a freak storm. It absolutely pissed down. And there was a bit of hail as well. So it's just finishing up. Anyway, so I've just holding the wing here. As you can see, I've just got just a simple electrical clamp, just holding that together. Gone through, done all the epoxy. I've wiped off the excess. So what I'm going to do now is it comes with it. This model doesn't have iron-on covering. It's more of a stick-on covering. So it's got this stuff here that you put over where it's where the join is. So I will do that off camera. Then what we'll do is we'll move on to the next phase of construction, which will be some of the electronics, and yeah, we'll go from there. Alrighty guys, so while we are waiting for the main wing to fully cure before we do anything else to it. What we will do in the meantime is we will carry on with the build by going on to the landing gear. Now, as I mentioned in the very first video, I will be doing this in the trike configuration. So we have our main wheels, we have the landing gear, and inside here we have the hardware to attach the landing gear to the fuselage. Now, I also mentioned, as mentioned before, you can have this as either a trike or a tail dragger configuration. In the tail drag configuration, obviously you have your tail wheel right there. However, if you are going to do that, as mentioned before, you will want to, with the rudder, make sure you have this proper steering rod put into the rudder there. You can see the slot for it. You'll want to do that straight away in the build. That way you're not left with you're not left with difficulty trying to put it in because you might have to make some customization. Alrighty, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the landing gear, or put the landing gear on, and then I will show you I'll do that off camera, and then I will show you the finished product. Alrighty guys, so as you can see now we have the landing gear put on. Now when you're putting the landing gear, if you're building this boomerang and you're not too sure about how to go about certain things, just remember, apart from take your time, but when you are drilling holes, especially into wood, if you're putting screws in, rather I should say, it's always good to drill some pilot holes. It even recommends it in the instruction manual, because you're dealing with balsa wood and plywood. Now, unlike like your timber and that, although timber does benefit from pilot holes being pre-drilled first, but when you've got balsa and ply, when you are screwing in wood screws to the wood screws can cause the wood to split. So when you are, for instance, attaching the landing gear here, it is good to, I just did it with a little hand drill, but you can use an electric drill if you want, but just pre-drill some pilot holes for the screws to go in. That way you don't risk splitting the wood and damaging the fuselage. And when you're putting the nose wheel on, make sure you note the orientation, especially with this part here that goes in. When you have this screw here, there's a flat spot for this screw to push up against, which prevents the nose wheel from spinning around. So take note of the orientation of that. Check these were pre-installed, but check them just in case they're a bit loose. So now the next part, what we're going to tackle is the engine mounts. Now these engine mounts, these are a nylon, like a nylon plastic kind of engine mount. I'm going out on a limb that this mounting the actual engine to the engine mount will be the same as what it was on my original Boomerang, which I am not going to do. They recommend using wood screws to go into the engine mount. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something that's a little bit more secure. But what I'm going to do is install the engine mounts to the firewall here, and then we'll continue from there. Alrighty guys, so we have the engine mounts installed, and they're not bolted in tightly because, unlike my original Boomerang, they've updated the engine mounts, which is a nice little feature. And when I say they've updated it, see, the original engine mounts, well, in my case with my old Boomerang that I had, they just had a hole, you bolted them in, and then you had to squeeze the motor in, squeeze your engine in, and then you had the motor mounts spread out like that, depending on what sort of engine you used. However, if I carefully do this, you can see that the engine mounts can be adjusted width-wise. So that comes in handy for installing the engine. So with the engine, they recommend that it is 110 millimeters from the edge. So basically the edge here, so where it's flush with the plate here, 110 millimeters from the firewall. So I'll measure that off camera, and I did have a look through the instruction manual. Yes, you do use wood screws to install the engine. I am not going to do it that way. I will show you in a later video. But in fact, considering what's been done here, I will go ahead and install the engine off camera, but I will continue that on with the next video. So I will stop the video here with regards construction. So what we will do is, in the next video, I will continue with showing the installed engine. I will also and then in that video we will go through installing the fuel tank and electronics, and we'll go from there, guys. So stay tuned for the next video.